Winter is coming, but before it does, I feel like making some lists. Game of Thrones, 5th season, coming up fast, but before it gets here, I want to have a little fun. And you know what? Top 10 lists, they can be a lot of fun. So I've got a few different ones that I want to do. I'm not going to do favorite seasons because, I mean, we've got more to go. I'm not going to do favorite episodes. I am going to do some favorite characters, some favorite deaths, and also worst characters. We're going to start off with some favorite characters, and I actually had to break this up into 2 lists. So we're going to start with the favorite characters currently living. And if you've just started watching the show, aren't caught up all the way through, if there's a great character that you think, oh, why aren't they on that list? I didn't mention them. There's a good chance they're probably dead. So there's your spoiler warning. Let's do this. Number 10, Daenerys Targaryen. Mother of Dragons, breaker of chains, inconsistent character. But when she's on, she's awesome. And she's been on a good trajectory all the way through season 4. So I think we're really on a good path. And honestly, if she keeps on the path she's on, she'll probably move upwards on this list by the time the show's over. The reason she does rank so low has a lot to do with 2nd and 3rd seasons, where she kind of flopped back and forth between being the strong leader and the girl in over her head. I get that those are both aspects of her character. I just don't think that they were balanced, juggled, or switched between particularly well when they were kind of battling it out for which side of her had better control. Things are flowing much more smoothly now. Now that she's actually starting to attain levels of power and realizing how difficult it is to actually try and rule, that's really interesting, and I'll be really interested to see if that kind of takes the wind out of her sails a little bit in wanting to conquer Westeros. She's become more interesting, more dynamic, and better balanced, but those few rough seasons, that's why she's not higher on the list. Number 9, Brienne of Tarth. She's just a great contrast to a lot of what's going on in this world, because sort of the fundamental thing with Westeros and the Game of Thrones is that this is a dirty world with dirty, unpure, manipulative, scheming, two-faced people. And she is the honorable knight, bound by oath, bound by honor, bound by duty. And that's just something that feels like in a lot of ways it shouldn't even belong in this world. But she is determined to hold on to her integrity and her honor and still exist in this world. And that is an interesting thing to see. Now, add to the fact that she's just a flat-out badass, and you've got a hell of a great character. Number 8, Peter Baelish. This is a guy I just love to hate. And that kind of really started with his betrayal of Ned, and just you start to realize just how dingy and scuzzy this guy is. And every time you think he's hit his lowest depth, he just digs a little deeper. And what's really impressive about him at this point is how well his ambitions are paying off. You know what? As time has gone on, you start to go, oh my God, he really has a legitimate shot at getting his butt on the throne, which is crazy, but really awesome. And you definitely don't want him there, but seeing him try and the lengths that he'll go to is, he's just terrific villain material. And I am going to call him a villain. I mean, this is a world of a lot of grays, but he's pretty much the blackest that any human character is. I mean, the absolute evil is the White Walkers, but short of that, this guy, he's pretty clearly somebody you do not want taking power. Number 7, Davos the Onion Knight. I've mentioned it before, in a lot of ways he sort of feels like a little bit of the replacement of Ned Stark, because he is that more honorable character, and he does find himself following the orders and the commands of somebody who he believes in and has faith in, but doesn't think is necessarily doing the right thing. And Ned had been a fantastic character, so it's nice to get that kind of dynamic in the show again, even though Ned's dead. And as we get a little bit more of his history, and we see little bits of sort of the pirate side to him with some of his interaction with other pirates who are still in that business. And just really the amount of trust and faith that he has in Stannis Baratheon is really kind of incredible, because even though he is very concerned that Stannis is going down the wrong path, he still has this utter faith and trust that in the end he will do the right thing and be the best person to sit on the Iron Throne. And to see that level of devotion, but at the same time not have it be blind devotion, and he has such faith in Stannis but is still willing to poke him and call him out on stuff, that's a delicate balance, and he handles it just fantastically. Number 6, Lena Tyrell. You know, in a lot of ways, she did feel like the only one who could go toe-to-toe with Tyrion Lannister, and just sitting down and just the witticisms, the barbs, and the negotiation. Now, ultimately, he did kind of get one over on her, but she just has that presence and that same sort of thing that Tyrion has, but I don't want to say the light side to his darker side of it, but she just seems to be just slightly more toned down with it. She's not holding the fact that she's pulling so many strings over everybody's head the way Tywin is, yet she still has that same degree of power. Number 5, Varys. You know, dynamic, complicated characters, it really is the running theme of this list, and Varys is another terrific example. He is wonderfully complicated, yet can be summed up so perfectly in that moment from the first season when he's talking with Ned Stark in the dungeon, and Ned Stark asks him, "Who do you serve?" And he says, "The realm. Someone has to." He has no ambition himself to ever sit on the Iron Throne, and he has no individual loyalty to any one person that he thinks that person is absolutely who should be there, whether by birthright or whatever. He doesn't care. He's gonna do the best that he can that will enable the best outcome for as many people as possible. But he's got to do it so behind the scenes and so underhandedly because the guy's got no legitimate power, yet quite an impressive bit of influence. It's funny because that first season, he almost felt a little bit like Peter Baelish, like, oh, we can't trust this guy, he seems sleazy. But, you know, at this point, he instills a sense of trust, not from the other characters, but from the audience, that you can always trust that his intentions are what he genuinely thinks is going to be best. And I'm going to be really interested to see what happens to him in the next season because he appears to be abandoning the city where he's got such strong roots and where his entire infrastructure is. Did he really give all that up for Tyrion? I mean, that's a huge step for him as a character, and I'm really going to be excited to see what happens with him in the future. But I think even more so than that moment, the turning point was when we saw his enactment of revenge against the person who mutilated him as a child. This guy plays the long game. And people as patient as him, they have a good tendency to come out on top. Number 4, Brawn. You know, I said complicated characters were the recurring theme of this list. Brawn, not that complicated, but so much fun. I mean, there's just something admirable about a guy who has more loyalty to himself and to money than to you, even if he likes you, and who will tell you that to your face. Yeah, I like you. They're paying me better, so I'm gonna have to kill you now. I mean, he doesn't feel like a backstabber. He doesn't, I mean, he is a mercenary, but he doesn't have that mercenary feel to it. He's too upfront. He's too honest. Like, it is what it is. What do you want? And his rapport with Tyrion especially has always been such a highlight for me ever since the two of them met up. Seriously, the show could just be the two of them and I would love it just as much as I do now. Number 3, the Faceless Assassin. I'm going to call him that because I would butcher the actual character's name. If that even is his real name. I mean, who the heck knows? But this guy, oh man, so few appearances. I mean, by far the person with the fewest appearances to make this list, but he was so intriguing. Immediately, just this sort of oddness to his face and to his line delivery, the way he interacted with Arya. And then just what a friggin' badass the guy was. I mean, this is the epitome of a character who shows up, wows you, and then leaves, and you're dying to get him back. He leaves you wanting more, and there's a possibility now that we might get him back. Remember, I haven't read the book, so I don't know. But where things were set up with Arya and where she's going at the end of the 4th season, maybe we'll get him back. And if we do, I really, really hope we get this actor playing him, and they don't go with whatever the new face was that he put on in his last appearance or something else. Give us this guy back, because his performance was so good, and it was what made the character, I mean, the character was cool anyway, but his performance really solidified it. Number 2, Tyrion Lannister. I mean, what can I say? There's a reason this guy has won Emmys for this role. Tyrion was an awesome character right off the bat, just the way that he owned his stature and his standing in life, and yet he knew just how to pull the amount of power that he had to keep himself going and get what pleasure he could get, and then later just using it to negotiate his way out of not getting killed. But we've actually seen him growing and changing quite a bit over these 4 seasons that we've gotten so far. I mean, you think about that lecherous little drunk in a room full of horrors that we met in the first episode to where he was at the end of season 4, going down that hallway with that crossbow. I don't care who you are, I would not have wanted to run into him in that hallway. It could have been the mountain, and I still would have been like, dude, you're in trouble. Tyrion is just at this point feeding off the resentment that the world seems to have against him that he used to make light of before. Now he's like, you know what, to heck with you, I'm throwing it right back at you. And yet he still maintains that wit and that charm. I'm not gonna call it lightness anymore because he's too damaged to call it lightness, but he's still charming, even as he's grown tougher and harsher. It's just been a great journey so far, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So who takes the top spot over that little man? Number 1, Arya Stark. You want to talk about a character who's gone through a transformation. I mean, she was a tough kid from the beginning, but where she is now, when she first had her first kills and started getting that sort of, I don't want to call it a taste for blood because it's not like she's a serial killer, but sort of realizing not only is she okay with doing this, but she's good at it. And to see her go on this journey now, knowing that she's headed to where the assassin came from, maybe she's really gonna learn the ins and outs of this and be able to truly enact some revenge. Not that it's ever gonna make her whole. I mean, much like Tyrion, she's far too damaged to ever go back to what she is, but to watch her change and to watch her become tougher, wiser, and yet still in some ways a child. That moment when the Hound tries to take her to the Eyrie and is told that her Aunt Lysa has died and she just bursts out laughing, that was possibly my favorite moment of the entire show. It's like she's just come to realize fate is a bitch. To hell with all of you, I'm gonna get mine. For someone as young as she is to be able to convey everything that's going on, it's just astounding. And there has not been a sour beat or misstep with her for the entire run of the show as far as I'm concerned. Every move that has been made with this character has been right, has felt right, has moved her forward on the path she's on, and it has been amazing, and I love her more every single time I see her. So that's my top list for the 10 best still living as of the end of season 4 characters on Game of Thrones. What about you? Who is your personal currently alive character on this show? Whoever it is, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Until next time, this council is adjourned.